Okay, so Sarah was 90 years old and her husband Abraham was 100 when she gave birth to Isaac, her only child who was a child of promise. They didn't think that they could have kids, which was a major disappointment because they really wanted a family. But little did they know, God had a special plan for their lives. It's never too late for God to keep his word. This makes Isaac's birth miraculous, not only because Sarah had been barren her entire life, but also because of her advanced age when she conceived. So let's begin. In the Old Testament, Abraham and his wife Sarah, despite their advanced age, are promised a son by God. Isaac is born after Sarah's long years of barrenness. Barrenness, for y'all who don't know, means that she can't conceive, she can't have kids. And he becomes the heir of God's covenant, as Sarah was to a mother of all nations. So Abraham was 99 years old when God promised him and Sarah a son. Sarah was 90 when she conceived, and Abraham was 100 years old. Their son's name was Isaac, which means laughter. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm trying to let everybody in. Okay. So Sarah's laughter is viewed more negatively, often interpreted as a display of disbelief and doubt in God's promise. She seemed to focus on the natural limitations of their ages rather than trusting in God's power. So as we look at Genesis 18:12 through 15, it says, "Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou did laugh." Their laughter, regardless of the specific interpretation, highlights the challenges of faith and the difficulties of trusting in God's promises, especially when they seem impossible to fulfill. It also underscores the importance of humility and recognition of God's power. Abraham became the father of many nations, and from his child came children, and from their children came more children, until Abraham's descendants were truly more numerous than the stars in the sky, just as the Lord has promised. So the question is, why did God not punish Sarah? It says, "And when Sarah denied that she had laughed because she was afraid, God forced her to confront the truth of her actions. Yet he did not punish her or retract his promise, meaning to take his promise back. God's grace was great enough not only to do the impossible for Sarah, but also to accept her human limitations and forgive her unbelief." So Genesis 17 and 15 through 22, Genesis 18, 9 through 15, and Genesis 21, 1 through 7. It explains that although Sarah was barren until her old age, she was patient, kind, and loving, and remained faithful to her husband. She died at the age of 127. So the story of Sarah can primarily be found in the book of Genesis, specifically in chapters 11 through 23. Key events involving Sarah include her name change to Sarah from Sarai, her barrenness, the birth of Isaac, the incident with Hagar and Ishmael, and her death. So in Genesis 17, God changed Sarai's name to Sarah as part of the covenant made with Abraham, her husband. So God changed Sarai's name to Sarah to elevate her status and signify her future role as the mother of many nations, as promised in the covenant with Abraham. The change in name symbolizes a new identity and relationship with God, marking the beginning of a new covenantal relationship. Sarai means my princess, while Sarah means princess, a princess of multitudes. So as we look at Genesis 11 and 30, this verse introduced Sarah as Sarai, Abraham's wife, and mentions her barrenness. As we look at Genesis 17 and 15, God changes Sarai's name to Sarah, signifying princess and promises for her son in her old age. When we look at Genesis 16 through 21, these chapters detail Sarah's relationship with Hagar. Okay, so I'm sorry, people of study coming in. Where was I? Okay, Genesis 16 through 21. These chapters detail Sarah's relationship with Hagar, her Egyptian handmaid, and the birth of Ishmael. Sarah's sequential pregnancy with Isaac and the incident where she demands Abraham banish Hagar and Ishmael are also described. So in Genesis 16, Sarai, Abraham's wife, is barren. In an attempt to fulfill God's promise of an heir, she gives her Egyptian slave Hagar to Abraham, her husband, who conceives Ishmael through her. After pregnancy, Sarah's harsh treatment of Hagar causes Hagar to flee into the wilderness. An angel of the Lord appears to Hagar, promising her that Ishmael's descendants will be many. In the story of Abraham and Sarah in Genesis, Sarah, being childless, decided to give her maidservant Hagar to Abraham as a wife. This was a custom in their culture where a woman could provide a surrogate mother for her husband if she couldn't bear children. The goal was for Hagar to conceive and bear a child for Abraham, who would then be considered Sarai's son. So let me see. Here's a more detailed explanation. So the cultural norm back then in the ancient Near East, where the story of Abraham and Sarah is set, it was not uncommon for a woman to give her maidservant to her husband in order to help him produce offspring. So Sarah was elderly and barren, and she was desperate for an heir to carry Abraham's lineage, as God promised him a son. Sarah's maidservant, Hagar, was chosen to be a substitute wife for Abraham. The idea was that if Hagar conceived, the child would be considered Sarah's son, fulfilling the promise God had made to Abraham. The plan, however, led to conflict and consequences. Hagar conceived, and when she became pregnant, Hagar looked down upon her mistress, Sarai. Sarah was very angry and treated Hagar harshly, and Hagar fled into the wilderness. God intervened, and Hagar returned to Sarah and Abraham, and Ishmael was born. In Genesis 17, God renews his covenant with Abraham, promising him that Sarah will bear him a son. God changes Abraham's name to God changes Abram's name to Abraham and Sarah to Sarai. Sarai to Sarah, I'm sorry. And establishes circumcision as a sign of the covenant. This is, circumcision is when the little boys, penis get, their foreskin gets cut a little bit. In Genesis 21, this chapter focuses on the birth of Isaac, Sarah's happiness, and her role in the banishment of Hagar and Ishmael. Sarah bears a son, Isaac, fulfilling God's promise to Abraham. A conflict arises between Sarah and Hagar regarding Ishmael's inheritance, leading to the exile of Hagar and Ishmael. God miraculously provides for Hagar and Ishmael in the wilderness, and Ishmael grows into a skilled archer, becoming the father of a great nation. So in Genesis 23, Sarah's death and burial in the cave of Machpelah are recorded here. Sarah dies at the age of 127 in Hebron, and Abraham mourns her. Okay, so I can't pronounce this word, y'all. It's Machpelah, which means double or doubled. It refers to a cave, a sacred burial site near Hebron, where Abraham purchased a field and cave for the burial of Sarah. The name is thought to allude to the cave's potential for doubling. Let me see. It's a place where honored figures are buried. So what does the story of Sarah teach us? The story of Sarah in the Bible offers numerous lessons, including the importance of faith, God's faithfulness and mercy, and the need to trust in his timing, even when it differs from our own. It highlights the consequences of the consequences of doubt and impatience, and the power of God to fulfill promises even in unexpected ways. So Sarah's story demonstrates the importance of faith, God promises, even when they seem impossible. Despite her age and infertility, she trusted God's promise to make her a mother of a great nation. So in Hebrews 11:1, the King James Version, it says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen." So the story shows God's hold on, y'all. Okay, so the story shows Sarah unwavering faithfulness. Even when Sarah and Abraham stumbled in their faith, God's mercy and grace were extended to them, demonstrating his desire to be with them throughout their journey. The story highlights that God's timing is not always like ours. While Sarah and Abraham were impatient, waiting on their son, God's promise was eventually fulfilled in his time, in God's time. Sarah struggles with doubt and impatience that led to her making choices that caused problems, like using Hagar to conceive a child. This highlights the dangers of not trusting God's plan. God's ability to fulfill his promises, even in the most unlikely circumstances, is a central theme. Sarah, who was barren, became the mother of a great nation, and her son Isaac became the father of the Jewish people. Let me see. Sarah's life, filled with challenges and trials, demonstrate the importance of resilience and endurance in the face of adversity. Her ability to overcome obstacles and trust in God's plan is a testament of faith. So, what was God's power to Sarah? It says here, who would have thought that Sarah, so many years beyond childbearing age, would be supernaturally enabled by God to conceive and give birth? This miracle shows the power of what faith can do. Sarah's dream of having a child had gone unfulfilled for many years. What does Sarah mean spiritually? It says Sarah is a name of the biblical wife of Abraham. It is a Hebrew word meaning nobleman, noblewoman, or princess. Sarah is typically a feminine name. It says here, what type of woman was Sarah in the Bible? Sarah in the Bible, a princess. Sarah was blessed by God to become a royal princess. She would be a mother of nations to come. Although she was barren until her old age, she was patient, kind, loving, and remained faithful to her husband. What were the strengths and weaknesses of Sarah in the Bible? In the Bible, Sarah displayed both remarkable strength and notable weaknesses. She laughed. I'm sorry, y'all. She is lauded for her faith, unwavering loyalty to her husband and son, and for becoming the mother of a nation and an ancestor of Jesus. However, she also struggled with doubt, attempts to solve problems independently without God's guidance, and is shown to blame others for her faults. So I'm going to name some of her strengths. Sarah is recognized as a woman of faith and is included in the Hall of Fame in Hebrews 11. She is also known for her unwavering loyalty to her husband Abraham and her deep love for their son Isaac. Let me see. It's kind of repeating itself, y'all, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. In the King James Version, faith is described as the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. It's a belief in God's truth, a firm conviction in what he has revealed, and a confidence in the certainty of his promises. Essentially, faith is trusting in God even when you can't see or understand the full reality of what he has promised. Sarah was the mother of all nations. She was protective over her child. She was obedient and submissive. Her weaknesses, she had doubt and unbelief. She was independent in problem solving. She was blaming others. She was manipulative and self-interest. And it says here, why did God not punish Sarah? And when Sarah denied that she had not laughed, she was afraid. God forced her to confront the truth of her actions, yet he did not punish her or retract his promise. God's grace was great enough, not only to do the impossible for Sarah, but also to accept her human limitations and forgive her unbelief, just like he does for us. So 8 powerful ways and lessons that you can learn from Sarah. The first one is never limit God's abilities. And you can find this in Matthew 19 and 26. It says here, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. We can never truly fathom the extraordinary power and abilities that God has. So we should never limit God's abilities in our lives. Sarah laughed when she overheard the angels of God saying to Abraham that she was going to conceive and bear a son in her old age. Yes, it sounds ridiculous, but with God, all things are possible. Everything works out for the glory of God when it comes to his perfect plan and purpose in our lives. Nothing and no one can stop what God has planned for you. We are limited in our abilities, but with God, he can do such amazing, incredible, unthinkable things because that is the kind of God we serve. So the second thing, it says, trust God no matter what. Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Sarah didn't show her trust towards God when both her and Abraham were promised to be a father and mother of many nations. She limited her faith in God when she heard that she was going to conceive in her old age. We should never stop trusting God. God is the most important person in our lives, and we need to completely trust him no matter what is going on or what we are struggling with in our lives. God knows what is and isn't best for us. God also created each and every one of us with a unique purpose and plan for our lives. We were created by him in his image. We are created for his glory. Everything we should be doing in our lives is to serve and please him. Put your complete faith and trust in God alone, no matter what. The third thing says God always delivers what he promises. Romans 8 and 28. And we know that all things work together for the good to those who that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. God created an everlasting covenant with Abraham when he promised him that he would become a father of many nations. God delivered what he promised to Abraham. God always delivers on his promises for us. We just have to be patient and remain faithful. What is it that you are currently waiting for, on the Lord about? Can you learn to be patient as you wait for God to deliver your promise to you? Even if it took several years or even decades, it is so hard to be patient when we are just waiting for certain things right now. But God's timing is perfect. God's plans are perfect and God's ways are perfect. So slow down, be patient, trust, and wait on the Lord. And then here it says God's timing is perfect. Psalms 37:4. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. And I said before, God's timing is perfect. God is outside of time. He handles things in his way. We just have to put our complete faith and trust in him alone, whether it is waiting on the Lord for a husband, children, finances, or whatever the case may be. It's hard when we don't see what is going on behind closed doors. We cannot see how God is working on things, but we can know that he is hearing and answering our prayers in his perfect timing. God is never late. We are just impatient. Sarah could have conceived and had Isaac at a much younger age. She already gave up. Okay, hold on. Yeah, Sarah could have conceived and had Isaac at a much younger age. She already gave up on the fact that she was barren for majority of her life, but God had other plans for her. And through her having Isaac in her old age, we can see that God's plans for Sarah were to be at that given time. We cannot fully understand the reasoning behind that, but again, that is why having complete faith and trust in God alone is so very important. So it says here, trust God's plan for your life. 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we walk by faith and not by sight. God created each and every one of us with a unique purpose and plan for our lives. We may not always know what God's plans is for us, but we cannot see what lies ahead in the future, but God knows. This is why we must walk by faith and not by sight. We must lean upon the Lord for complete understanding. God's love is unconditional. 1 John 4:16. And we have known and believed the love that God had to us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. God loves us so much. His love is unconditional and everlasting. He created such a beautiful plan for both Abraham and Sarah in their old age, to be blessed with a son whose seed would then bring about many generations of children. Through this lineage, Jesus came about. Everything works out for good. Everything works out for God's glory. We may laugh, we may cry, we may stress, we may deny, but God knows all. God sees all, and God will handle all. His love for us is so beautiful and amazing. God truly cares about each and every one of us. He took the time to knit us in our mother's wombs. He took the time to create such wonderful and glorious plans for our lives. God is always faithful. Hebrews 10:23. Let us hold fast the possession of faith without wavering, for he is faithful. That's promised. Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore the Lord thy God. Know therefore the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Even when we aren't faithful to God, he is always faithful to us. God will never back down on his promises for us. And for those who are married, submit to your husband, submit to your own husband, which is Ephesians 5:22 through 23. So I just got a notification that we're running out of time. So if everybody that didn't receive an email today with the Bible study lesson plan, can you put your email in the chat real quick? And then we're going to pray out. Okay. I guess everybody received theirs. So the ones who received the email today, all the Bible verses are in that email, so you can go back and refer to it. I like y'all to go back and read it yourself and not just take my word for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pray us out. Lord, I come to you today with a heart that desires your blessings and answers to my prayers. I understand that your timing is perfect, and I trust that your plans for us are greater than our own. Help us to surrender our anxieties and fears to you and to believe that you are working behind the scenes. Grant us the patience and faith to wait for your perfect timing, knowing that you will answer our prayers in your own way. Guide us to be still and listen to for your voice, and help us to remain steadfast in our faith, even when we feel uncertain. Thank you for being our shepherd and for leading us in the path of righteousness. We are confident that you will complete the good work you have started in us, and we trust your timing is always right. In Jesus' name, amen. So y'all, I'm sorry, I was reading as I was recording, but I'm looking at two different cameras. But next week we're going to talk about Eve. So if you can tune in next week. If you haven't, please like and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss out on the Bible study. Also, if you have a daughter or you know a female that's age 8 to 18 years old, I'm offering a course, a leadership development course, which starts September 23rd. And you can find it on Eventbrite. It's called Pearls for Jesus. It's Pearls, the number 4, Jesus. And also, I want y'all to tune in on June 23rd, which is International Widows Day. I have 3 speakers that are going to tell you their story as a widow and widower and how they overcame. So until then, like I always say, don't let anyone steal your joy, because the world did not give it to you and the world cannot take it away. Y'all have a blessed night.